Open Seminars Online, and this is the 7th edition, and the title of my presentation and then discussion after with the members of the seminar is "What is education for today?" Today is important because today, meaning these times, is very special because we have the internet, artificial intelligence, and I think that any contemporary discussion about education must not ignore this very important aspect of our today's life, that is digital, access to digital knowledge. So, as usual, I will try to answer some questions, and first I will tell you what are these questions. So the first is, what aims and forms of self-education Stoic pragmatism discusses most frequently? And for me it's very important to stress this self-education element. We are not talking about just education, but also about self-education, and perhaps even more importantly, self-education rather than education understood in a traditional, classic, formal way at school or university. Second, what is an obstacle to opportunity approach? In other words, hindrances must be turned into means. It's very pragmatic, and I will tell you more about it in a second. 3. Why is important the awareness of our potential and its limits? Our potential means, according to the naturalistic background of Stoic pragmatism, that each and every organism has some kind of inner potential inside, and an educational job or job within the educational project is to some degree recognize this potential or these potentialities that are inside, and the ability to recognize how much energy we have and we are able to dedicate in this or that or that or that direction. 4. What does this mean? Education expands self-awareness from self, and self may mean Socratic know yourself or humanistic culture or cultura in the original Ciceronian meaning, then community, then humanity, according to the widening concentric circles pattern. And number 5, what is the role of meliorist habits building, self-discipline, intrinsic motivation for learning? For those who do not remember, meliorism or melioristic is a pragmatist vocabulary for advancement, betterment, making a difference. So let me start by quoting John Lachs, who in his Stoic Pragmatism book presented something like this. The basic thing. The function of education is to enable people to live longer and better lives. So here, this general aim of education is to know how to make this happen, longer and better lives. Longer does not mean just more and more years. It means how to live in a healthy way, at the same time how to elevate the quality of living. And it does not mean to earn more money, although this is also a very important thing, but I think more importantly, how to find out the potential in our bodies and our minds to appreciate what we have and identify opportunities that are at hand. The other thing is, Stoic pragmatists believe that intelligent effort can make life longer and better. So we have a tool, natural tool, human beings have natural tools to make this happen. This is intelligence, our minds. So investment in our intelligence by means of knowledge, self-knowledge, recognition of opportunities around us is something that Stoic pragmatism focuses upon. And at the same time, Lachs says, Stoic pragmatists acknowledge human limits. So it is not an attitude or a stance that sees limitless possibilities of human minds and human bodies. Rather, a part of this educational project is to understand, more or less, recognize where are the limits, what we can do, limits, what we can improve. So this is sort of balance, very important to know, on the one hand, the possibilities, on the other hand, our limits. In my book, I pay attention to different things, and among them is the following. Practical application of various forms of educational effort, short-term and long-standing. So by education, I do not mean just formal education, school education, or even university education. It is a part of the story, but much more, I wanted to say important, but I'm not sure it is much more important, but it is equally important. Long-standing, I mean, education meaning that at different stages of our lives we have different challenges and also educational challenges. So learning cannot, should not be limited to some initial stage of our life like primary school. So it is something that should be a part of our lives, also adult lives at different stages of our lives. So education in a very wide sense of this, of the meaning of this term. Human development, personal self-fulfillment. So self-fulfillment refers to what I already mentioned, the realization of the potential, natural potential that we have inside, of course, in the context of the culture we live in, because the environment, cultural environment, technological environment, political environment, gives us, or limits, or gives opportunities that we have, and makes it possible for us to recognize wider or narrower possibilities that we can realize. For example, today, in our age, we have almost for free, accessible, incredible source of knowledge that is the internet. So personal self-fulfillment cannot today ignore the possibilities that the internet can give us. Of course, it's a risky thing because we may use internet in a very wrong way. But this is the challenge. We have access to the internet, and much depends upon other factors if we are able to use this access to the internet in a good way or not good way. And the third thing I would like to focus upon now is that professional training is secondary, not primary. In Stoic Pragmatism, education has this element of self-development or development of our character. In old language, old-fashioned language, Stoic language, it was virtue, development, or discovery of virtue. I prefer to talk about character. So development, strengthening of our strong sides, generally speaking, our character, is something more important in Stoic Pragmatism vision of education than specific vocational or professional training. Let me get back to the classic Stoic thought. It's interesting because Musonius Rufus, one of the most famous Stoics, could be labeled as a Stoic feminist in some sense, because he taught, because he did not write anything, but his students were having notes from his lectures. So we can say he wrote, he authored a text pretty famous women too should study philosophy. What it is important, because according to this egalitarian Stoic approach, education, as other things, but now we are talking about education. Education is not only for males, it is for everybody. And development of character is not just development of male character, it is development of everybody's character. So everybody should be should profit from education if education is done in a proper way. This is another story, but education should be for everybody, not some groups. And he says that women and men have the gift of reason. So we are equal in the sense that both men and males and females have reason, which is in this tradition the most important factor in the context of education. Next, educated women more courageous than uneducated. So courage is something that we can get by means of education, and it is courage meaning one of the important aspects of character. So we develop our character in the context of courage, and it is one of the functions or forms, maybe aims of education, to be more courageous in doing things in a proper way. And finally, philosophically educated women less intimidated and afraid in the social context, political context, familiar context. So here, almost or more than 20 centuries ago, the function of education had been outlined in a similar way that today we would say this is the education for. Should be that we should be more courageous and more able to recognize the opportunities around us. Modern Stoicism continues this idea, and Pigliucci, one of the most eminent figures within modern Stoicism, says the following: the fundamental Stoic idea on education is this: to live a good life, we have to learn about how the world actually works, as opposed to how we wish it would work. It is very important because it is indication that education should focus upon reality rather than wishful thinking. It is of course very difficult to fix this difference between reality and wishful thinking, which should be a part of good education. However, it is important to indicate this element that to live a good life, we have to learn how the world around really works. Also, we must learn how to reason correctly in order to best handle the world as it is. So it is not just education in the context of self-education, but also education about reality around us. Proto-pragmatist stance, Emerson, very famous representative of American transcendentalism, but we can say that from some point of view, transcendentalism, American transcendentalism is kind of proto-pragmatism. It was very interesting to see how transcendentalists, Emerson especially, focused or understood the role of books. So famously he said, books are the best of things well used, abused among the worst. So what is the role of books? And we can say other educational sources, it is instrumental role. Books and other educational devices should be instruments or tools that should help us use them in a proper way. I quote Emerson, to inspire. So the role of books is to inspire. The one thing in the world of value is the active soul. In other words, educational devices, books, in the first instance, the internet in today's world, are just tools for us to self-develop. and develop our knowledge about ourselves and the knowledge about the reality around. Famously, John Dewey, one of the most important thinkers within the pragmatist tradition, said or wrote at some place, hindrances must be turned into means. This is one of the most interesting techniques or strategies, better, to deal with problems, and it is both Stoic and pragmatist at the same time. How to learn how to face problems in such a way that we overcome problems using the context in which a given problem appears, overcome this problem by getting some profit out of this problem. So when we have a difficult situation, we may see this difficult situation as a challenge that if we overcome, it will be profitable for us. So it does not have to be this way that there is a problem and we escape from trying to solve the problem. The problem may be an opportunity to get something. Pragmatist stance already quoted in one of our previous seminars about meliorism or betterment. So let me quote it once again. The pragmatist idea of betterment or meliorism. It says that the specific conditions which exist at one moment, be they comparatively bad or comparatively good, in any event may be bettered, which means that apart from extreme situations, tragic situations, probably most situations we face create a context in which many things may be bettered. And the role of our educational effort is to learn how to recognize within the present context or future context how some elements of a given situation can be bettered to our profit. And also quoted before, Martha Nussbaum, who defines herself as neo-Stoic, she refers to some ideas that we discussed before, especially this concentric circles idea. But she says the following, that priorities in education should be in this way. Commitment to self-examination. Self-examination is one of the most important things in education from this point of view. Self-examination means constant asking myself in a kind of Socratic way, reflection about my potential, my possibilities of using my energy, but also recognition of the behavior and acts and actions and doings if they are going in a good direction. The self-examination cannot be stopped at some moment. Actually, self-examination is something, according to this concept, that we should be doing all the time. So a self-reflected person, according to this idea, probably has more chances to be better oriented in the world rather than an ignorant person, or person that does not reflect too much about his or her situation. Next, scrutiny of traditional values. The idea is that traditional values have some sense for us today because the assumption is that generations before had to face different problems, very often similar problems to problems we have now. And thanks to traditional values, we can see that some elements of social life as well as private life had passed the test of time. So, for example, if we learn from previous generations, for example, that self-discipline is something profitable independently of the cultural context, economic context, or political context, or cultural context, so probably such value as self-discipline is something that should be cultivated in education. So it does not mean that all traditional values should be cultivated in modern era, but it means that many of them, because they have survived, or better say, passed the test of time, it is at least important to take a look at them to see if previous generations have something to offer to us, new generations. And this is a part of education. The next thing is the whole world as a series of concentric circles. So she is trying to update this old idea of concentric circles that I discussed before in previous seminars, and see this kind of perspective that what we should take care of first is ourselves, meaning our minds and our bodies, then our persons we love or we are responsible for, then our neighbors, our community, our society, maybe our nation, and then humanity at large. This should be priority. So first we should know how to successfully deal with challenges that are close to us, and then if we are successful in this, learn more how to deal with issues far away from us. Next, we should become increasingly aware of the broader world to which we belong. It is not priority number one, but it is priority number 3 or 4, because the world at large should be known, but after we know what to do with our life, how to arrange life in a good way, and then we can learn more about what happens in the context that are far away from us. And finally, you can talk about the world economy, about different world cultures, different religions, and so on. So finally, according to this concentric circles pattern, humanity at large should be something that our educational project should embrace as well. Thank you.